Okay, we are live.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mariana. I'm here to talk about SVG and CSS animations. I will talk mainly about SVG because there's a lot to say about this language, and I'm not gonna be able to cover everything in this talk, so I decided to pick some examples of works that we've been doing here at Lenny Labs, and I built my presentation around them. If you want to interrupt this talk with questions or things that maybe they are important to be said and I didn't say them, so please raise your hand or let me know and we can review those examples.
One thing there, Mariana, there is a button to raise the hand in Zoom. So if you want to do that, like we know that you have a question also in the middle.
Great. So I will start talking about the benefits of SVG. The main benefits are in the name of scalable vector graphics. Vectorial graphics means that brings the possibility to scale our drawings without losing any quality. And the good thing about this is that they are usually very small file size, so they perform really fast and they are cheap to our users, and we can navigate the SVG because it's based on XML language. So the syntax is very familiar, it's similar to HTML. And we can, of course, interact with them, and it goes really well with other web platform language like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So here we are going to talk mainly, well, there are a few ways of implementing SVG in the web as an image, like the way we've been implementing images like PNG and the rest. Then we have as background image in CSS. Then as an iframe and an embed, I wouldn't recommend to use these options. Then as an object and as an inline SVG, this last one is the way that we are going to show in this presentation mainly. I'm going to talk about this one because the good thing about this is that it renders immediately, so it's easy to interact with. Yes, I can access to it with CSS. If we have more time, we can talk about these options lately in this talk, if you want. So, okay, I'm gonna start with the hard part. I will try to code some of these examples just to show you how easy is to build these basic shapes in SVG. We had all these options. So let me see if I can. Okay. I will try to start coding something like as an example. Let me know if I have any typos because I usually have a lot of typos in read and hate. So I am just defining my viewport here. We don't need to define units when we want to use pixels. By default, units are pixels in SVG. So I will try to draw a circle. I need a center X and a center Y. And I will do a radius like 50. So you see it's very easy and it's really easy to understand also the syntax of this element. I will try to see, this is a rectangle, also for squares. What we need here is the first point where we are going to start drawing our figure. Then we have the read. So we don't need to declare these axes when they are equal to 0 because that's the default. So it's really a shorthand to write a rectangle like this one. What else? The default fill color will be black. the default stroke will be 0, none. And well, I'll try to show some other attributes along the talk, but maybe you can think that this is pretty basic for SVG, but if you start using these figures together, you can start composing things like this one. I was thinking about the loading for my linear labs, and when I came to this idea and started to code it in CodePen, I realized that I only needed circles. So as you see, the syntax is legible and it doesn't take too much. Then I am only using one animation here. That is the one that is making the planets rotate along the center. So basically what I am doing is applying the same animation to the different planets with a different translate from the center. So I want to continue with another basic shape that is not that basic. I'm going to talk about paths. These are a little bit complex. It's easy to understand the syntax, but of course it's not easy to write it. If you need to use it, it's better to use a software. But it's nice to know how it works in case you need to make some small additions or something like that. I'm gonna, again, make some viewport for my SVG, and I will try to show you some of the things that we can do with paths. This for data. Then the first that you need to write is M, that is the movement of, means like if you have a pencil in your hand and you are moving your hand to this point of the coordinate system, and you will start drawing for that point. It's not drawing anything, it's just you placing your hand there. So H is for horizontal, and B is for vertical. So we'll start drawing like this. Let's say, you will see that C is for closing my path. So this is, I want to just remove some of the attributes so we can see this more clearly. So what do we have here in path? We also have the possibility to write curves. That's the most powerful thing. So I'm going to move my hand to another point in the viewport. I will draw a Q is for cubic Beziers. And then I'm going to place my control point in this part of the viewport. Let me first write some coordinates. These are like pairs of coordinates where I am placing my pencil. So it's not that difficult to understand, but of course you won't be drawing with this. What else? I want to explain another thing about path. For drawing from here. If you want to, I mean, there's a meaning for these lowercase letters, and there's another thing that you can do with them. See that I am using here an horizontal path that is going 50 pixels on the right, but if I change this letter for an uppercase, it will go to the 40 point in my coordinate system. So lowercase is for relative coordinates. It means that the last one starts when the one behind it ended. And if you use only uppercase, then you will start drawing like in points of your grid of your coordinate system. So I would recommend using relative position because you can move all your drawing with just one command, that is the moving hand. If you move your hand, then you will move all your shape together. If you have absolute positioning, you need to move every coordinate one by one. So, well, of course, you won't be using this, but Maybe you will do something like downloading an icon from the web. This is the most common usage. So if I open this SVG here, I will inspect it. So we can see what we have there. The software where you draw your illustration usually gives you a lot of unnecessary code, like these groups that are empty groups. You can delete all of them. You won't change a thing in your graphic. Also, most of the software include a lot of namespaces that you don't need or they are deprecated. So what I would recommend is go to software like SVG or MG and paste your code there. This will compress your code a lot, like here is going down like 70%. So then you copy your you can copy your code and bring it to your text editor. So here you will see that the path is a little bit more complicated than one I showed previously, and it's less legible because it's removing all the white space and commas that are not necessary for SVG. I am removing this because it's the default. So if I will try to make the viewport a little bit bigger so we can see the image here. So some attributes that you can change are the fill color, for example, and then the stroke, of course. Stroke by default will be 1 pixel. So if you want to reset that, you can add the size of your stroke here, for example, in CSS. See that this is clipping my image. To avoid that, you can use overflow, visible, and then you might need some margin. But the way I usually do this is, sorry, I forgot the units. The way I usually do this is changing my viewbox here. If we have more time, we can talk more about the viewbox. But I am adding some negative space to my coordinate system. That's what I'm doing here. Like I'm going from, instead of going from 0 to 0 on the left top, I'm adding like a negative value so I can see all my SVG here. Let me know if you have any questions, if I am clear enough with all the examples. I'm moving on with some examples of things I have done. This is a very useful tag. I use it a lot. When you want to clone some part of your graphic and reuse it somewhere else and maybe change some attributes, let's say like, for example, you have this planet and you want to clone it like here and then rotate it a little bit, change the color, then you don't have to draw it twice. You can draw it once and then you add an ID to it and you can replicate it and move it around the same SVG. So this is a good example for that. We made this for one of our websites. We had like a lot of cubes and they were built with the same unit of a very small cube. That's the one. So what you need to do is define your unit there. I define it my cube here, and I added the ID. This is one cube, and then I'm linking the same template with the link, calling the ID, and I'm repositioning it along the screen as many times as I needed it in the position that I need. So see how with one, I draw only one cube, and with replicating it, I can make as much figures as I need. Also, what I did here is adding a variable to the fill color. So every time that I call it, I can rewrite the color palette with variables. So this is mainly what it's doing. I have 3 animations here. I defined them in the keyframes. Let's say the move up is only the transform translate is moving my my cube in the vertical axis up. That's why it's negative, it's going up. So they are very simple movements. And then to call this animation, I need to select a class where I want to bind that animation. And with animation shorthand, I am saying that this animation will last 2 seconds. We'll use this that I defined it here, this name. In alternate direction, that is goes from up and it goes from down to up and from up to down. See that now that I removed the alternate direction, the cube is going down, like jumping back to the initial state. So that's why I'm using alternate. And infinite is how many times I want this animation to play. In this case, infinite, but it could be any number. And then the animation, the play state is, by default is running, but I decided to put pause. So I am running the animation on over. That's what I'm saying here, like running on over. That's it. So this is a simple example of using everything and reusing everything. So, okay, I explained this before, like the animation name, duration, delay. I used the shorthand animation, but what is inside is these are all these properties. They have like a few values, not many, so they're easy to learn. This example, I will show it a little bit fast because I like because of its simplicity. I have a lot of rectangles that are placing around the center. What I'm doing here with a very dry code is like I'm saying that every rectangle should go from opacity 1, that is the default, to opacity 0. And what I'm doing here with the SASS loop, this function, is saying that I want to increase that delay based on the position of each rectangle. So I like this example because it's really easy to build the loading like that. Okay. This is another interesting example because I am using HTML form validations. You might need to add the required value here in your input. And with CSS, you can call that with a pseudo element that is valid. So when the text area is valid, I'm going to show this SVG on the background. Let me show you how this works. This is our contact form from my Linear Labs website. So, oh, I think I'm sorry. We've been playing with this yesterday, so I think I broke it. I can show you this on Linear Labs.
That's my fault.
When the input is valid, you are showing. I am showing this SVG on the background, and this. If I try to send this form, this animation will be played. The envelope will drop out of the button because I need to validate both forms in order to send the message. So now I will play another animation when both are valid, and the envelope is going inside the mailbox. So what I did here is I added the SVG inline, but in CSS. Okay, I removed the namespace here. That's why it's not working. So you need the typical namespace that you have in SVG. That is this one. You don't need it in HTML because HTML knows that it's going to read an SVG when it reaches this tag. So you don't need to use it here, but in this example, you might need to use it because it won't. Yes, now it's working. So that's pretty much it. With JavaScript, I only like checking if the validations are working or not. I like this because it gives user feedback with SVG. That's something very nice to have. So I think I'm getting almost to the end, but I will show you some examples of things we've done here. This was one of the first animations we did. This is a loading that we use for one of our websites. It's like when when a user wants to start their store for the first time, it might take a few minutes. So instead of having a loading and a freezing page, we added this cute animation just to make them wait without, with, I don't know, maybe something more interesting. And then this is for another client. This is another loading. Loaders and login pages are my favorites right now. I build everything in Illustration first, then I start planning what is going to happen. Then there's a lot of code going back and forwards to, coordinate the timing of every element in CSS. But this is only CSS and SVG. This is for the same client. I like that we can start building systems with graphics, and I think it adds a lot of value when you can make, like, I don't know, it's like branding a little bit more, and I think it brings personality to their websites. So this is a lot of small and simple animations. I'm only using translates and rotations and scales. If I play this a little, you will see that at the beginning, the bus is coming in, and this is moving, then stops moving somehow in the timeline. And then I am animating the stroke of the SVG. This is a really easy animation to do, so I am applying it in some other places. And what else? This is for the same client. Here I want to show you this preserve aspect ratio. That is something that I use a lot. By default, if I start collapsing my drawing, you will see that it starts to shrink. So it's getting smaller as I collapse the page, because I have a min height here for the SVG, and the SVG by default is trying to keep my aspect ratio. So in order not to distort it, it's just collapsing my image. So what I want to say to SVG here is like, I want to preserve the aspect ratio, but keep safe the center part of my graphic. So the X and the Y middle points will be safe. And with the slice, I'm telling the SVG the browser to crop my SVG from the sides. So when I start shrinking, collapsing the page, now my graphic is not shrinking, but instead it's collapsing from the sides. So I use this a lot in every example. That yes, even in the last example, when I am keeping this zone safe, so I don't want my graphic to distort or to shrink too much. So I am cropping it from one point of the viewport. So if you, for example, if you have a wider screen, you will see more part of the illustration. So what else? This is the last example. This one is interaction with SVG and JavaScript. The circle in SVG is following my mouse with some calculations you are doing with the center X and the center Y, but that's it. And yes, to close the token. Yes.
Amazing. Everybody saying that in the general channel. But Pedro is asking how much SCSS there is in the animation of the login. Like I think in the big one that you were showing with the
how much
train and the bus.
Yes,
like,
how much?
A lot. Pedro, is here and you want to rephrase the question? Go ahead. If not, you should answer.
It's okay. That was the question. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I didn't understand the question. Sorry, but
So there is a lot of like code to animate this, like
no, it's
quite
not
complex, or
Usually you can separate your animations in movements. I do that a lot. For example, like something I have translate that goes from the offside screen from DX to from 100% negative to 100% out of the screen, and I use that movement a lot for many things. But no, this example doesn't have that much. I can share the code later, but I will show you also an example of my usually flow in this, the complete flow. I mean, what I usually do is I draw everything in Illustration. I usually have a file like this that is a mess where I draw all my ideas, and when I come to something that I like and I think is close to the end, what I do is copy my vectors, and then I can open them in sorry. Then I open them in a text editor. But first, I will compress the SVG. So, and copy my code and bring it back to the code editor. Another thing that I didn't show, sorry, is that when I know what things I want to animate, I group them by elements and put the names here in Illustrator in the layers. So you'll see that I have my names there. And when you convert this to SVG, you will have all these names as IDs, and that's really useful. So I know I have this, sorry. Let's say I want to search. I have this ID. Because I have so many Nave IDs in my artwork, this is placing a number, so I'm removing it. So what I want to show you is that this is what I usually do. It's like defining my keyframes. And I'm gonna name this Nave move. And I want to move it from, let's say, a transform, translate in the x-axis, 100% to make sure that this goes out of the screen, and from there to this point to 100% out of the screen. So I'm defining my animation here, and I will bind it with animation property. So maybe 3 seconds, the name of my animation, now remove, and infinite, and then I can play with other properties. I'm sure I have, I should have a typo somewhere.
To translate. Translating.
Thank you, Alfonso. So then I will start moving. Maybe this is too fast, so I can increase the seconds of the movement, and then I can tell like how many times I want it to play. Then you have by default the function of the movement is is, but you can use this in, is in out, and then you have a lot of tool basers that you can search in the web and add that function of time here. But that's it. Then you, of course, I will start animating the rest of the elements here. And yes, another thing that I like about SVG, this is my last comment. I like using CSS variables for this one. I was thinking that it's nice to have, for example, I will inspect this SVG. For example, this, I have a field that is a variable, it's a color. And here I can change that color and see that everything that has the same variable will change. So I like this a lot, because if you think about, I don't know, templates or switching your color palettes in websites, or give the user the possibility of changing the templates, you can also include all your SVG in that branding or color palette that they choose. So here are some accessibility tips for SVG. You should use them every time you use SVG, and I'm not going to explain all of them, but they are there. This presentation will be available. So if you want to, if you have questions or anything, then we can go through this. But it's important that you add them to your website. So, well, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. There's nothing else to say.
Oh.
You're going to read later the comments, Mariana.
Okay.
Well, everybody is quite emotional right now.
I feel so alone speaking by myself.
No, you were amazing. So, do we have any questions for Mariana?
Yes, I do have questions. Hey, Mariana, how do you name the IDs when you copy the vectors from Illustrator to the code?
How do I name them?
I saw that the name were auto-generated, so where do you name it in Illustrator? Oh, you name the layers?
Yes, in the layers. In the layers, you group your paths, and this is a group of, for example, here is the Saturn planet. So if you group them in Illustrator, then when you switch to SVG, it will create also groups of paths, and it's easy and it's handy. So everything that is moving, I am trying to put a name, and yes, so it will create the ID directly.
That's great.
Yes.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is Saturn your favorite planet?
No, it's not Paris. It's the easiest to recognize.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I have one. I don't know if it's related to this, but what is the purpose of ARIA properties, like ARIA labeled by and all the rest? Like, do they have a use, or are they just decorative?
No, they have a purpose. You made them accessible to screen readers. Usually in Image, you have like an alt, but for SVG, the equivalent would be a title. So you don't have alternative text, you have only a title. And then ARIA labeled by gives you like, it's like reinforcing that tag, because some browsers may not work very well with this. So when you say ARIA labeled by, you are like binding the title to this SVG. And also if you want to add a description, you can. It's not mandatory, but it's there in case you need it. And then you can say, you can say the role of your image, if it's an image, if it's a presentation. Sometimes you have SVG with a lot of text inside, and maybe you don't want the screen reader to read that text. Imagine that you have like an icon with an exclamation mark, and it's like an image, but so you don't want your screen reader to read exclamation mark. Then you will use a role as image, so it interprets as SVG as an image, and it won't go inside and read the text that you have in there. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Mariana,
thanks.
Yes.
Do you remember the size of like the animation in Sodexo or the one in Milenio? Like what is the size? 10 kilobytes, like 5 megabytes?
I don't remember, but yesterday I was showing to Mati, and I think it was like 20 kilobytes. Can you remember, Matthew?
Yeah, even compress, it was like 10 at the end when with the tool.
Yes. If I paste my code here, oh, sorry, I need to do something because SVG, no, Illustrator, when I copy the SVG directly from the software, it adds that little character at the end, so I need to paste it first in an editor and then here. So,
10K.
Yeah,
20K and it's compressing, yes.
You
So it's
cannot
not-
read SVG.
And all this work in mobile and in like all devices. Or what is the support for animations right now?
For animations, well, it depends. For CSS animation, it's pretty good. Then, yes, there are things that, the thing is that the only things that you can animate with CSS are the properties of CSS and not the attributes of SVG. So there are a lot of attributes in SVG that you won't be able to animate them unless you use SMIL animations that are like the native, let's say in quotes, the native animation from SVG. So there's some limit there. But in browser compatibility, yes, I mean, you always need to check. This is changing a lot every day. Like CSS is taking a lot of properties from SVG. It's been doing that for a lot of years. And I was, for example, telling to Matthias and to Agustin that, for example, pointer events comes from SVG. In SVG, you have like 9 types of pointer events, and in CSS, you only have 2. So this is one example, but so SVG takes some of the attributes. CSS takes some of the attributes of SVG, but not all of them. So that's why you only can animate transforms and opacities and, well, every CSS property you can animate. But for the other ones, you still need to keep with the SMIL animations that they are not that broad. For example, Explorer doesn't support SMIL animations, and Edge doesn't support them either. So you need to review everything, like depending on the project you are working on.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but even if it doesn't work, like you will see a good image, a static image, no?
Yes, that's the thing. I apply all these things in presentation graphics, so it doesn't change your experience in the web. So you will see, yes, you will see the static image. Yes.
Nice.
So try not to apply them to any important information on the website, just in case.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one last one then. Mariana, where do people contact you for keep discussing about this? What channel do you use? Front end?
Yeah, maybe CSS problems, if it's, I don't know, maybe. Yeah. Yes, whatever you say, yes, or send me any message if you have any question, if I can help in anything. Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot to say about SVG. Like, it's really powerful, and it really integrates very well with web platforms and other languages. And yes, if I can help in anything, just contact me by Slack.
Thanks a lot. This was an amazing talk, and thanks everybody, and see you next week.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah,
bye bye.
Gracias, Mariana.
Gracias, Mariana.
Gracias, Mariana.